and we did reach out to them. So if you didn't hear anything, no news is good news, and everything should be good there. And then related to rights restrictions and informed consent, that training was held on November 4th to discuss those topics. We are working on getting that posted to the provider portal if you were unable to attend. And so when that is posted to the portal, an email will be sent out, I believe.
So Jace, that's the provider revalidation. What about rights restrictions and informed consent? I think that's the next topic.
No, sorry, I just rolled right in from one into the other. So that was the training that I was talking about.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So then the update that I had is regarding the cost report training. So we briefly talked about this last time. There's been some interest about that. As many of you likely know, Elena did retire at the end of October. So you may have already met the person who is now working in that role. Her name is Sarah Farnsworth. So Sarah will be the one who completes the training for us when it occurs. It will likely be probably after session, right after session when that occurs. So as we get more information from our partners in finance, we will pass that along. If you have not had a chance to meet Sarah or had any communication with her, she is extremely knowledgeable. She comes from another department within state government, so she is very well aware of the financial structure and that type of thing. So she will be a great resource for us within our department. Do you guys have any questions on any of that? I'm seeing in the chat that some folks didn't get the agenda, so I'm just going to take a minute to highlight what we're going to talk about so people know kind of how we'll spend our time and what's going to happen next. So Jays and I just provided some updates as follow-up from the last meeting. The next item is going to be a few updates from me. Jays will walk us through the overall kind of a high-level summary of the Family Support 360 waiver. As you guys know, that is due for renewal in March. We're also going to provide work group updates, visit a little bit about what we're proposing for 2022 stakeholder engagement schedule, and then we will do some quick updates regarding some upcoming events, and then that will be the end of our time. So if you have questions again, while we are talking and working through the presentation, certainly use the chat box. We're happy to take a pause and answer questions as we get them. Looks like Julie put the agenda. Thanks, Julie, in the chat. So hopefully everybody can see that now. Okay, so I will move into just some of my general updates. I just wanted to start with a big welcome to Lindsay Doomer. If you guys know, this is actually a bit of a welcome back to Lindsay Doomer. So Lindsay previously was with the division for quite some time and is now back working with us again, and we are very happy to have her. If you can see Lindsay, Lindsay wave, thank you. You likely have met her if she is working with one of your agencies or you've been fortunate enough to communicate with her at all. She's a fantastic addition to our team of experts, and we are very fortunate to have her with us. So again, welcome, Lindsay. The next update I wanted to give is a brief update again on the public health emergency. So you guys know we talk about this a lot. We're watching it closely. We know that the CDC will likely review it again in January. They've been doing it on a quarterly basis through the public health emergency, and so we'll be watching that towards the end of December, early January. Also with that is our Appendix K is tied to the public health emergency. So the flexibilities in Appendix K have an additional 6 months post the lifting of the public health emergency, which is again very important for all of us on the call, why we're watching that so closely. So we'll continue to provide updates as we get information on public health emergency, CDC's actions, that type of thing. So any questions on that update. Okay. The next update I wanted to briefly talk about is the enhanced Fmap, or otherwise known as ARPA. What we know right now is we have received a partial approval from CMS. So we are waiting on ultimately the final approval. I will say that there's a intermediate approval from CMS between what we currently have, which is again partial. The intermediate is a conditional approval. Then the next step after that is the final approval. So we're in this this gap between the partial and the conditional approval. So that's where we are at with that. Many of you on this call probably received, and likely I'm hoping took part in, the provider survey that our partners in finance, the Department of Finance, sent out. Again, it was sent to all of the 200 providers associated with the Department of Human Services. So hopefully you took time to fill that out. I believe there was also some sections in there to ask questions if you had them. Any questions that were noted, I do believe there will be direct follow-up on those. So hopefully you had that. Likely the large portion of that, the funds, when we get that final approval, will be distributed accordingly to department providers. So it's very exciting. Any questions on enhanced Fmap ARPA? You guys are so quiet today. Okay. Then my last update is in regards to the memo that I sent out the end of October regarding the SMART system. So I provided some clarification around missing documentation, notifications and timelines, and then just some additional clarification as far as remediation and completing the files, the requirements and that type of thing. So I wanted to just take a moment, because I sent it out at the end of October and we haven't been together since then. So are there any questions or follow-up on that memo? Okay. As always, if you have questions, please reach out to your DD contact or myself directly, and we will follow up with you accordingly if you have questions. So hearing none at this point, I will turn it over to you, Jace.
Alrighty, I believe, I don't know if that was at our previous meeting or at meetings prior. There was a request for an overview of Family Support 360 waiver. So just gonna give a pretty high level overview. The first thing that I do like to highlight is that Family Support is a Medicaid waiver program that has an intermediate care facility level of care. So highlighting those, particularly for some of our community support providers that don't deliver family support services, that, you know, there's an understanding that both choices and family support are Medicaid waivers, and they both have the same level of care. So essentially, the population of individuals that are eligible for the choices waiver are also eligible for Family Support 360. The only difference being is that there's an additional eligibility requirement for Family Support 360, and that is that our participants live either in the home with their families or independently in the community. So they cannot be receiving residential supports and be eligible for family support. To deliver family support services, CSP will contract with the division, and through that relationship, it is to administer programs, also known as local family support or a local program. There is a lot of, I guess, different ways that we can refer to, but ultimately, each local program consists of a service coordinator in their caseload. So typically that's around 40 participants per caseload. So how family support operates is through that relationship between a participant and a family support coordinator at their annual ISP meeting. They are working to develop an individualized budget that's used to self-direct services and supports. And so the family support coordinator assists with identifying both natural and paid supports because, of course, the waiver isn't able to cover everything, but ultimately the goal being to keep the family together and supported in their home and preventing that participant from institutionalization. And so to do that, again, each individual receiving those services chooses a family support coordinator, and then the family support coordinator helps to fill that role for the individual and identify those services in their plan, as well as helping advocate for the individual. So would serve a really similar role as a choices case manager. However, the intent being that the family support coordinator also assists with the navigation of services and the budget process for family support. So in talking about that self-direction, I thought it would be important to try to provide a brief overview of agency with choice, particularly because I know in previous meetings we've talked about our agency with choice model. We've provided an update on the work group that's actually on the agenda today. So I thought that I would just try to maybe describe that a little bit better for those who aren't familiar with agency with choice. And so ultimately that's our model that we described within the family support waiver that allows for a co-employer agreement that supports self-direction. So within family support, individuals are allowed to hire providers for specific services, and they do that through this agency with choice model. And so the agency with choice providers serve as the employer of record. And that through that relationship, they support the participants with financial management services, which essentially, along with some initial hiring paperwork that most commonly includes processing paychecks, as well as things like W-2s, the tax requirements in relation to receiving a paycheck. And then the participant or the family serves as a co-employer of record. And so the family, with the support of their coordinator, is responsible for hiring and training the staff, but they do so through this agency with choice model and this co-employer agreement. So family support does allow the flexibility to hire and train. Sometimes it can be another family member, a neighbor. It really allows individuals to take the lead in who delivers their services and supports. And that is all made possible through the agency with choice model. So then just an overview of family support services. In first, talking about that support coordination. So that's the facilitation and development of that individualized support plan or ISP. Family support also offers respite care, which is short-term breaks for primary caregivers. Companion care focuses on supervised integration, socialization, role modeling, skill development. So the intent of companion care is to help participants with more so a training approach, as opposed to doing things for a participant. This service would be doing things together, kind of hand in hand, working to develop those skills. Whereas personal care would be the assistance with performing activities of daily living. So bathing, showering, eating, like personal hygiene, teeth brushing, those types of things. Personal care is really more so a provider coming in and delivering those services, whereas companion care takes more of a form in modeling. Family support also supports with environmental accessibility, which is the physical adaptations to a home to make it accessible and ensure the health and welfare of the participant, which allows for greater independence and without which the participant would be institutionalized. Vehicle modifications are adaptations or alterations to a van, usually to allow for a participant to access their community. Family Support also has specialized medical adaptive equipment and supplies, which directly allow a participant to perform activities of daily living or perceive or control or communicate with their environment in which they live. And then nutritional supplements could be covered, and that would include things like Boost or Pediasure, those meal replacement type beverages. So that is kind of the core services within Family Support within the waiver. Family Support does also have some general funds available that we use to offer some services within the program, but those are not included in the actual Family Support waiver. So within our system, there are 8 providers of family support. So Benchmark, Black Hills Special Services Co-op, the Center for Independence, Dakota Milestones, Lifescape, LifeQuest, SESDAC, and VOA. And through all of those programs, we support approximately 1,400 individuals on family support. This is still me. Okay. Yep. Sorry, got a little small there. So then in talking about the family support waiver, waivers are approved for 5 years. So family support is currently within its last waiver year. And so within that, that means that we have to submit the waiver to CMS for approval so that we can continue to offer these services. So in doing that, we have been working along the way to gather stakeholder input. And so one of the things that we have been working on within that family support waiver renewal is the agency of choice model and making revisions to that model to ensure sustainability in the future. And so that work group started in March of 2021. In May of 2021, we started the family and self-advocate conversation sessions. So that's just yet another way that we can hear directly from participants and families regarding their services. The Family Support Council is a governor's appointed council that was established by an executive order. So there are 15 Family Support Council members, and that council typically meets quarterly at least. And so that council really is the advisory board for family support. And so we meet with them and discuss things that the council would like to see within the family support waiver. And so we kind of started drawing that out in June. We then continued to have conversations through the family and self-advocate sessions about the family support waiver renewal in July. We had another family support council meeting in August. Again, additional self-advocate and family members sessions in September, another council meeting in October, and then starting in November, we sent out a survey to participants and families receiving family support services to hear directly from them. And then we're continuing this evening and tomorrow with family and self-advocate sessions, and then we'll have another family support council meeting the first weekend of December on the 4th. And then after that, the waiver is posted for a formal public comment period. And so ultimately that means that anybody can provide comment after the draft of the waiver is submitted. And then after that, after we receive that comment and filter through that, the draft of the family support waiver is submitted to CMS in March. So on that, related to the family support survey, as of November 15th, we had received 300 responses, which is a pretty good response rate, seeing that we have 1,400 people on the program. And there were questions related to the services that they're currently receiving, services that they feel like are needed, satisfaction with the agency of choice model and some of the recent changes, and then of course the impact of COVID on their services, as well as potential name change for family support, as that's always something we would like to consider as a possibility.
So the next would be to do the work group updates. There's not a slide for that.
Okay, I will pause there. And see if there are any questions. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and roll right into the work group updates.
So you're up first with the HCBS settings.
Okay, are there slides or no slides?
There are no slides.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, so part of this was discussed in the training on the HCBS settings rule that was given back at the beginning of November. I believe that was on the 4th. So we will continue to discuss rights restrictions and compliance with the federal authority. And our next step is to have a conversation with the HCBS settings work group to ultimately talk through what it's going to take to bring rights restrictions into compliance with the federal authority now that we've issued quite a bit of guidance related to that, as well as made revisions to the decision tree and now had the training. So that HCBS settings work group is scheduled for the 23rd. And so we'll have conversations, and then ultimately DDD will be communicating some next steps and kind of a call to action essentially for our providers related to rights restrictions and compliance with the HCBS settings rules. So that is where we're at right now. I would say in terms of the work group, providers were supposed to complete the provider self-assessments of their settings. And then I'm sure some of you are aware that our staff have been getting out and about and going on site to conduct HCBS settings assessments as well. So all of that is moving. Any questions? Oh, sorry, what was that, Julie?
I was just saying, I think I'm next, but let's pause for questions first.
We also have agency with choice.
Yeah. Apparently somebody thought that Jays should just talk for a few minutes. Okay, so if there are no questions about the HCBS settings work group, then I'll move on to agency with choice. So this work group has really just been DDD working with the providers of our agency with choice model, essentially, as well as our Family Support Council has created a sub work group that has been involved. And so ultimately, we're trying to come up with possible solutions to maintain self-direction within family support. We are going to have a meeting hopefully within the next, I would say, hopefully within the next few weeks. We're looking to get that scheduled probably sometime at the end of November. So we will be getting that work group scheduled and kind of moving forward with that, as that will be connected to the family support waiver renewal. So that's what I have with that work group.
Okay, if there are no questions or comments about those updates, thank you, Jays. We just kind of got you in there all in one shot, but I think you're done now, actually. So yeah, okay. I will talk a little bit about the Life Course Nexus work groups that we have and the roles and responsibilities work group. So within the Life Course, the work that we have been doing with Life Course Nexus, there are numerous efforts. One of which is the foundational training for support coordinators and case managers. So that work group activity has sort of concluded. Those recommendations have been given to the Life Course Nexus. That was really about the foundational training would be web-based, self-paced. And so that work group provided, they did all 6 modules within that web-based training and provided some feedback to the Life Course Nexus and to our DDD team. And so we've taken those recommendations, and the Life Course Nexus team is working to make revisions within that training platform. And we are working on developing some resources for essentially like case manager and support coordinator supervisors. So knowing that, you know, an online training is not the end all be all for orientation and training for those people in those roles. There's certainly in a coaching aspect and in-person kind of on-the-job training element to that. So we're developing resources for those people who supervise people in those roles. And so the next, so that work, like I said, that work is kind of the work group activity has concluded, and those revisions and recommendations are being implemented. The second thing that we've been working on is really developing an ISP template that would be used for both Family Support 360 and Choices ISPs. And I see several people who are on the call today have been involved in that work group. And so that's really, the Life Course Nexus has been a great support in putting together kind of what we envision as a good person-centered ISP, and integrating person-centered thinking and charting the life course principles into that ISP. They also worked with us to develop what we're referring to it as a rubric, which is really just a tool to measure the quality of that ISP. And so one of the things that we did as we developed that ISP template is that there were several work group volunteers who went out and tested that template, excuse me, with real people who are using Choices and Family Support Services, and conducted the plans and put the information into that template. We're now using that quality tool, the rubric, to, so we're testing the rubric. At the same time, we're kind of reviewing the templates to see how that quality and how that template worked, how the quality tool works. So we actually just submitted our testing of that rubric on Monday. So we'll have another meeting coming up here in a couple weeks to pull that work group together and discuss how that went, what we liked, what we didn't like, and kind of how do we wrap up this stage of the work and then move forward. Another aspect of the ISP development work group has been really talking about how do we, again, give resources to the people who are completing those ISPs. And so we are also planning to develop an ISP guide. We currently have an ISP guide for the Choices waiver for case managers who are doing the work on the Choices waiver, but we don't have one for Family Support. And the Choices ISP guide is really more like step-by-step screenshots of what that ISP looks like in the Fmap system, things like that. So the guide that we're looking to create is really more philosophical in nature, but it will have some direction as to the content that is expected to be in the ISP in any particular section. Another aspect that hasn't necessarily been an active work group, but we are working to engage people with disabilities and their families, is that we have, we're working with the Life Course Nexus to produce 6 informative videos, which would ultimately be housed on the DDD website. And so we conducted a survey of people who are using services and their families across South Dakota. And largely, so we asked questions just like, would some videos be helpful as a resource to you? What are here are the topics we're considering? You know, vote what's kind of the most important. What other topics might be helpful. And we also asked people if they would be willing to help us kind of shape what each of those videos looks like. And we got a really good response. I think we had over 40 people volunteer to help us, you know, kind of mold those videos. So we're in the process of that. We have submitted the script for a video to Life Course Nexus for the first video, which will be what is an ISP. So just very basic level. So these will be 5 to 10 minutes each. And we'll walk people through just like the very basic foundational information that they need to have. So what is an ISP? Who's involved in the ISP? What can I expect? The other topics that we're looking at that we will be working on include how do I know if I or my family member is eligible for services? What can I expect from my case manager or support coordinator? How do I find and select a provider? What are the differences between the Choices waiver and the Family Support 360 waiver? And like, what is self-direction? Self-direction, what is it and how does it work? So just providing some kind of basic level education and information that's available to providers and families and people with disabilities so they have a better understanding and can make really more informed decisions about their lives and services if they choose to seek services. So those are some of the things going on with the Life Course Nexus. We've been very busy with that work, but it's very exciting. So, and I guess I would welcome any of those work group members to contribute any additional thoughts or comments they have about the work they've been doing.
I have a question if I can, Julie, and I don't know if you can answer that or if another member of the work group is. So and we have one of our staff that's on the work group and participating in it. So one of the questions that we've been trying to figure out is with the focus system, how is with this change going to be established within that system? Are we still going to be using focus with family support? Is focus going away?
So right now we're not planning, I mean, we're trying to sort out kind of what this ISP template looks like, both for people who are using Focus and people who are using Therap. We haven't reached that final conclusion yet. We're hoping that we could integrate into each of those systems. So we're not looking at a completely, brand new thing, but it really will depend on how Focus and Therap are willing to help accommodate our standard for ISP for person-centered planning. So one thing I will mention is that we would be hoping to implement, like to make sure that everyone kind of has the resources and the skills that they need. So we could start implementing the ISP template and that the rubric, the quality tool, and those things like June 1st. So we are projecting out quite a ways, but as we know that, that time goes really quickly. So we do have some time to kind of figure out some of the more logistical things. So don't have a direct answer for you right now, but we are well aware that those things don't exist in either system right now. So we need to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts on that? Okay, I will launch right into the roles and responsibilities work group then. So again, the work group activity has sort of wrapped, although we do have work group members who are continuing to provide assistance as we roll out trainings on the various topics. So I think we've done 4 sessions now, if I'm counting correctly, which it might not be, might be 5 by now. So we are working to get the recordings for the sessions that we've done so far out on the provider portal. We've had a little bit of a delay with that and we apologize, but I think Jay's mentioned earlier, we'll send a message out once those are available. We have 2 trainings left. The CIR training will be pre-recorded. And so we'll send a message again when it's available on the provider portal. The expectation will be that everyone listens to that. And then on December 2nd, there will be like a Q&A session. So our hope would be that everyone will have viewed that CIR training recording and can come with their questions prepared to the December 2nd Q&A session. And then on December 16th, we have nope, not significant change, service change request training. So that has been a long time coming. We're very excited for both of those topics. Again, the implementation for the roles and responsibilities work is planned for January 1st. And we are, from each of those training sessions, we're looking at the chat, all the questions that come through in chat and adding those to the FAQ document. And so that will be available probably, towards mid to end December.
Julie, for the record, what's happening on December 16th?
That is the service change request training.
Julie, this is Katie. Actually, the service change request training is December 14th.
14th.
Tuesday,
I said
December
16th,
14th.
and I was a little worried. I'm sorry. It's the 14th. Sorry about that. Pay
No, that's
attention to
fine.
the flyer that Katie sent. Not me. Other than that, I just, want to thank all the people who have been part of the work groups that I've mentioned so far. It's been exciting work, but it's been certainly a time commitment. So we appreciate everyone coming to the table and working to make these changes and improvements in our systems. And then I think Augusta is next but we'll pause for a second to allow any questions or thoughts.
All right, hearing none, I'll provide an update on the shared living work group. So we have been meeting as the shared living work group. We've got another meeting at the end of this month. And then the goal is to kind of transition that work group work into a community of practice with the involvement of CSPs, of case managers, of family support coordinators, and of course, family members as well. So at our last meeting, we kind of discussed strategies on how to transition that work into the community of practice, which will be a quarterly meeting that just kind of based on the schedules with the rest of the stakeholder meetings will begin its work in February of 2022. Some of the work that we have been reviewing and finalizing a revision of the shared living guide to update it to more of what that service actually looks like within our system. We reviewed and submitted proposals for ARSD rule, which will be submitted in the spring session. We have finalized a new shared living application with the intent to kind of just do a little bit more thorough job in that application process of getting all the information that we need in one place. So that has been finalized. I'll be meeting and training on that document, which will be then released for the Family Support 360 service coordinators tomorrow. I believe I'm on the agenda, and then with the case managers in December, just due to scheduling with this month's meeting and the holidays. So by December, everyone will be trained and will have full access to that new shared living application. We also completed some process mapping work just to get an idea of what really the shared living process looks like from start to finish, both on the state side, the CSP side, the case manager side, just to get a full picture of that process and how we can make that most effective and efficient. And I kind of already hit on it, but I'm really excited about moving forward with the community of practice. It's something that was active before, and I think it will be really beneficial for everyone involved to be able to utilize that environment to have continued conversations and trainings on just the different aspects of shared living. So we can continue to make it a great service option.
Any questions for Gus? Okay, hearing none, then I am up next with an update on the rate methodology work group. So after 6 months of some pretty intense work with community support providers, because again, this is specifically for the choices waiver for the CSP rate methodology. We had our last meetings for both the work group and the steering committee this week. So we are online to meet our requirements for Senate Bill 147, which is to have the analysis complete and a written report submitted to the Joint Committee on Appropriations, which is a legislative committee, which is due next month. So we are sitting great on our timelines. We were fortunate to have a really great group of stakeholders in the work that we completed. I think we talked about before where we had 100% response rate from providers, which is phenomenal. Our consultants have never seen that before. So kudos to CSPs who responded and really took the time with that work. Again, we are so fortunate to have that completed. So some of the next steps will be submitting that report, and then we will have some further conversations with the work group about potential next steps. And we'll know more of that information probably, I would say, in January or so. So just high level, quick update on the rate methodology work group. So that, any questions on that work? Okay, hearing none then, the next item is the stakeholder meeting schedule. Julie, you want me to do this or are you good?
No, I'm good. I was worried that I would have to step away, but I'm still here, so I can handle it. Thank you. So as you all know, we have been having these stakeholder meetings for a little over a year now, and this certainly remains a priority for DDD. What we wanted to do is outline and kind of set out for ourselves to better manage all of the different groups that we meet with and work groups and stakeholder groups. We wanted to map this out for the new year, just to make sure that we are being respectful of everyone's time and able to manage our commitments really well. So you'll see that we have kind of mapped out each of our stakeholder groups and which month those meetings would be happening in 2022. So you'll likely see some cancellations and some new meeting invites on your calendars in accordance with this. So some changes that we are making. We have the family and self-advocate conversations. We have been doing those every other month since I believe May. And so we will be changing to a quarterly frequency for those and doing one session rather than two. We have found that largely some of the same people are attending both sessions. So we're going to try just a single lunch hour session and do those on a quarterly basis. We will also be changing our provider stakeholder sessions to quarterly. I'm going to skip over the family support CMCSP column for a moment and talk about the stakeholder collective. So you'll notice that we have a stakeholder collective meeting in January, and there are no other meetings happening in that month. So the family support coordinator, case manager, CSP, those are really the check-ins that your assigned program specialist does. Those are for case management leaders. We have a program specialist who is the liaison for those agencies. Same with family support coordinators. So we do have a specific meeting for those groups, but those are the check-ins that are already happening at the program specialist level. So stakeholder collective months, that collective group will replace all of the other stakeholder meeting groups. And so we'll be doing quarterly for provider stakeholders. And so we've staggered those out. So they're, again, not occurring the same month as a collective. We have the supporting families community of practice. That is actually showing, let's see, I think we did make the changes to that. Oh, no, we didn't. So we are considering changing the meeting frequency of that group to quarterly as well. So that would change a little bit. Family Support Council, this is tentative. The council has not determined any specific dates for these meetings, but as we were mapping it out, you know, and trying to stagger these a little bit, these are the months that we included. and the Employment First Alliance. Those are scheduled for March and June of 2022, and going on a quarterly basis would be occurring in September and December, but those dates have not been set. And then as Augusta was mentioning, the shared living community practice is really just set to kick off after the new year. And so that the hope would be that that group meets on a quarterly schedule as well. So this is a little bit different than the frequency we've had for the last year or so, but again, to make sure that we are being strategic in who we're communicating with and when and how often, and being respectful of everyone's time. We wanted to just kind of outline this for ourselves and all of you. Are there any questions or thoughts on this? I know having these stakeholder meetings has been really beneficial, and we want it to continue to be beneficial. So if there are any thoughts on the frequency or topics or anything, we certainly are open to suggestions.
Julie, maybe one point for clarification would be who is the target stakeholder for each one of these meetings? And so the first one there, self-advocates and family conversations, that's pretty straightforward. Those of you, the provider agencies, we work with you and other stakeholders to help get the invites out for those, but that's really targeted so that the division can have a direct conversation with self-advocates and families, and that's the intent of that conversation. The provider stakeholders, so this is a quarterly meeting that's geared towards IDD providers, so case managers and CSPs specifically, since CSPs many of them operate both waivers. Family support coordinators is obviously also straightforward. CSPs are the regular check-ins that our staff has with provider agencies, and then the case management leadership meetings that occur as well. Stakeholder collective is really all of those, essentially like all of those first three groups, plus community of practice members that fall into that collective group. So that's really where we would expect to see everybody come together. Supporting families, again, self-explanatory, community of practice, same for Family Support Council, Employment First, and shared living. So I just want to take a moment to make sure everybody is aware of who those targeted conversations and those meetings, the intent of what those are. So now I will say if there's additional questions, that'd be a great time.
Thanks, Joey.
Yeah, Kate, this we are continuing to have, that would fall under that family support coordinator / CM / CSP meetings. We're going to continue to have those family support meetings, and the one that's on the calendar for tomorrow is still occurring.
Okay, so my turn, I guess. We wanted to make you aware of the upcoming events that will be occurring in the next couple months. As Jay's mentioned earlier, the family and self-advocate conversations, of course, occur tonight. If Central Time would be 7 o'clock, Mountain Time 6. Tomorrow, the 18th, will be at 12:30 Central, 11:30 Mountain Time. Also, Jay's also mentioned the Family Support Council meeting, which will be December 4th, 8:30 in the a.m. Central Time, 7:30 Mountain Time. The information in regards to that meeting could be found on the DD website, division highlights. And then, of course, if looking for information about DDD, there's the provider portal. Please share that with the key staff, people that work within your organizations. This is a great place for them to get resources and what we're utilizing here at the division. It's all in one place. So that would be a great asset for all of your staff, including family support coordinators. And then the password is provided there, DDD provider 1. The next part of our meeting today would be to discuss what we need to accomplish as a division before December 15th. And I don't believe anything has been brought up. I haven't seen the chat though, since I'm running the PowerPoint. But if anybody has any items for our next agenda, and if Tyler, if you have anything, if you'd let me know, we could take some time right now to see if anyone has anything they would like added to the agenda for the next meeting.
Currently, I do not have anything noted.
Thank you, Tyler. Anybody on the call have anything they'd like added?
Jamie, I'm sure that we'll talk through this, but because it will be in March, it would make sense that we'll probably do another quick overview of the family support waiver, if people are interested.
Thank you.
So I would say, obviously, us and Dee Dee will generate some topics for the agenda, but if you have additional items, you can let one of us know, or your contact within the division, and we'll make sure that it's on the agenda for our next meeting. And this meeting will be scheduled again in March. Okay, well, we made very good use of our time today and have a little bit of found time in the day, which I think is probably okay with everybody. But I just wanted to open up if there's any questions on the things that we talked about. A few of us will stay on the line if there's things that have come up that you'd like to visit. Otherwise, as always, thank you for spending time with us today. I know that for those of us in the division, we find these conversations very helpful. It's certainly aligned with our focus on increasing transparency and increasing our engagement with stakeholders. And so we appreciate you all taking the time today to participate with us. Thank you.
So I'm going to stay on the line, and maybe somebody can help me understand the portal, because it's not something that we're familiar with using. So
yeah, one of us will stay on, Terry.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there a link for the portal that we should have?
I didn't see who asked that question. I'm sorry.
Christy, I think, asked.
Oh, so it's on the, there's access to it on the website. It looks like Jay's just put the link in.
Thank you.
So essentially what the provider portal is just a place that we have designated to include policy memos, procedures, guidelines. I will say for those of you who I've heard the voices of a couple of family support coordinators, supervisors. So there are family support relevant resources out there. I will say most of it is more geared towards choices, but there are family support guidelines out there as well.
And is that something like that, like our program specialist would be directing us to, or should we just research a specific topic? I guess it's not something that I guess we're familiar with. At least I'm not. And so when it got brought up, I was kind of wondering.
So how about this? Because I think I have it. I think I have it up. I do. Hang on a second. Let me share my screen.
Okay, great. Thank you, Julie.
Yep. Maybe. Maybe it doesn't want me to. Oh, hang on. Can you guys see my entire desktop right now, or just the?
I think we can see the whole thing.
The whole thing,
Okay,
but
I don't want you to see all that. Hang on a second. You don't want to see that mess.
And then just to confirm, so what we're about to show is really provider specific. So anybody who is not a provider related still on the call, I would just ask that you're free to hang up and exit the meeting at this time.
Oh, Jamie, I think it might be because I'm not the host anymore, or it's like it's not giving me the option to share just a window like it usually does.
Let me see if I
Portion of
can.
screen. Hang on a second. Let me try this. That's weird. Never
I
seen-
just made
So
you.
what I would offer is that the DD program staff will work with you to show you exactly where that's at and how we can get into it.
So this is what it
Or-
looks like.
So the provider portal was created because there's various information that's shared that makes sense for the whole system. And then there's information that's shared that makes sense for providers. And so that portal
Sure.
is where the information that makes sense for providers to be housed is where that is stored within the
Okay.
website.
So, and so I'm thinking with family support, it hasn't been something that we've been directed to in the past, which would be why we're not familiar with it. Which is totally fine. Is that something we think that you guys will then direct us further to it, or?
Yeah, so actually, we were a little bit surprised to hear that you weren't,
Okay,
to be
okay.
honest. So we'll work to just make sure that that gets better communicated.
Okay, all right. And so, and then the password, Joey, is just DDP, all capital, and the rest of the word provider one. And that's the same
Correct.
password for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I think we can take it from here, but thank you guys for the extra time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I would just say if you have specific other additional questions, you know, you can certainly reach out to any one of us,
Yeah,
Terry or anybody else on the line who might have questions about the
Yeah.
portal.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
It was
Kim.
an attempt to really clean up. You probably know if you spend any time on our
Yep.
website, it was a little bit of uncontrolled chaos, and so we just tried to control that a little bit.
Yeah, that's
So it
all
was a
right.
little bit more end user friendly.
Yeah, but now that I know we should access it, that would help us a little bit more. We can pass that on. So, all right. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You.